Hailing all the way from New York City, please join me in welcoming Rohr to the stage.
Hi, guys. Okay, yeah, it's a small audience and a big room, which is like the hardest way for a speaker to have to present ever. So I'm going to ask you guys to act like you're a big, huge audience and to laugh at my jokes that are not going to be that funny, okay? To act like you're much bigger than you are. So I was asked originally to come here to speak on the topic that was supposed to be how to raise $1 million in your first year for your nonprofit. And I said I've never done that before, so I wouldn't be capable of teaching on that. So then they said, okay, how about you talk about second chances? So I'm actually going to give you a split 30-minute talk on second chances, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about fundraising, because I did raise $780,000 in my first year with my nonprofit, so I can talk a little bit about that, okay? So first, just on second chances. Yes, I'm in second chance work, working with people who serve time in prison. I actually think that I'm actually more in the first chance business, because if you look at the backgrounds of where they came from, usually what we do is give them their first legitimate chance to make it in life. But if we just call it second chance work, and I'll go along with that. And I'll not only talk about the work that I do, but also about giving ourselves second chances. Sometimes people think that second chances are just given to us, and they can be, but sometimes we just have to give ourselves a second chance. So one of the best lessons that I ever learned in my life was back in high school, when I was the first girl on the high school wrestling team, and it was a boys' high school wrestling team. I know I don't really look like it that much, but participating as the only girl on it, I got my butt kicked every single day. I think I own my school's record for the most losses and the most pins for being pinned the fastest. The whole entire first season, I only generated 2 points in a match. But the persistence that I learned from that, from like getting back up and like going back to the girls' locker room where I was the only girl, crying my eyes out, and then coming back for the next practice and coming back with it, prepared me very well for the work that I do today. And so I gave myself a second chance every time. Like, yeah, they allowed me to come back to the team even though I sucked. But I was the one who kept believing in myself, even though I didn't have a whole lot of reason to believe. And it's a lot what it feels like today with Defy Ventures when I get out there to go fundraise. And it's also prepared me very well to work with the guys that I equip, giving them second chances, dusting them off, basically shining them up, and then putting them back out there into the world so that they can go and fight. So I'll tell you a little bit about the work that I do. Basically, we recruit executives and investors and entrepreneurs nationally to come participate as business mentors, coaches, and judges in these Shark Tank-style business plan competitions, where our students compete for $150,000 in financing for their businesses. We incubate their businesses. Our students, we go out and recruit the most accomplished former drug dealers and gang leaders that we can possibly find. We scurry the landscape, the hood, and recruit these guys who have averaged nearly 10 years in prison. And they show remorse, and they are so hungry for a second chance in life, or for a first legitimate chance, as I talked about. And the idea is that our students share so many skills with business executives, with entrepreneurs. They have a good hustle going, but they've done it for illegal gains before. And so now we're transferring their skills to do so legitimately and legally. And we equip them. There's also a whole big life transformation piece, and entrepreneurship is just a small part of how we transform lives. So there's a family program and soft skills and character development and all of that to equip our students to change lives. And I founded Defy at the end of 2010, so we're really in our second year right now. We are starting our third class this summer of students, and so far so good. In just our first 2 classes, we've now started nearly 50 different businesses. We've recruited 500 business executives who have given about 5,000 hours of volunteer service. Our recidivism rate, it's early to calculate, but it's 0%. Nearly all the guys are unemployed, nearly all of them are employed if they're not able to generate a fully sustaining wage off of their entrepreneurial ventures. We know that doesn't work out for every entrepreneur out there. And so far, the signs are very good, and we've been able to attract good media because the big idea behind Defy is that we're not only working hard to transform the lives of our student entrepreneurs, but also the perceptions of what people out there in the world think can come out from behind bars, because most of the stories are painted in a very ugly light. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I got into this work in the first place. Right out of school, I went to UC Berkeley and started working for a venture capital firm, then went to New York City, worked for a private equity firm. And I started following God at the age of 25, which messed up all of my priorities and my heart and my checkbook and everything. And I was looking for opportunities to combine a brand new heart that I had for injustice with my love for God and with my business skills. And at the age of 26, while living in New York City, I was invited on a prison tour out in Texas where I'd never been before. The woman who invited me to go on a prison tour, a place I had never in a million years thought I would ever go back, because I had serious stereotypes and stigmas against people who were locked up. I thought they were a bunch of wild-caged animals. But she kind of looked like me. She was 10 years older than me. And she started to tell me that some of the most amazing stories of redemption that she'd ever encountered were right there behind prison walls. So she talked me into it. I said yes. I could have said no, but I could feel my heart buzzing, and I'd been praying and asking God to give me opportunities to serve and give back meaningfully. So I went, and in that weekend, it shattered the stereotypes that I had as I spoke with these former drug dealers and gang leaders, and I realized many things. I realized that had I been raised in that kind of apprenticeship system that is so common in impoverished communities, that I too likely would have led some profitable criminal enterprise with my skills. I started to realize that many of the people behind prison, not all, actually want to live their lives in a different way, but they don't have a path, and there are very few people who are willing to lead them out of the lifestyles that they've been in and out of the modeling system that they've had. And then finally, trained as a venture capitalist, I mean, my job was to go around looking for entrepreneurs who were great ROI stories, like who had great potential. And in speaking with these guys in prison, I realized that, or I learned for the first time, that sophisticated drug rings and gangs are run by boards of directors, and they have bylaws and accountants, and they're really awesome at generating cash flow. They know how to execute very well. And so when I heard all this, it was like a light went off, and I was like, well, what about if these guys were equipped to go legit? So a month later, I flew back to Texas and kind of unknowingly, unintentionally sort of, launched what became Prison Entrepreneurship Program in Texas. And I put in everything I had, PEP, Prison Entrepreneurship Program. I moved out to Texas, where I never in a million years wanted to live. I was very happy in New York. And I had $50,000 in my bank account, cleared it out, cashed out my 401k. I had no plan B. Everyone in the world told me I was nuts, lost my mind, was insane. I kind of was, but that's okay. It ended up working out okay. Over the next 5 years, I ended up growing with an amazing staff and 7,500 supporters and volunteers, something from scratch, where I put in my own dough, to grown it to an annual budget of $2.5 million a year, entirely privately funded, not a government dollar in there. But the results that came about from running these business plan competitions and then equipping our students after they got out of prison, we helped them with housing, and we had mentoring programs. We sent them back to school at MBA programs. We hooked them up with angel financing, and we graduated 600 men and had quite amazing results. And some people like to say that we got these great results because we cherry-picked for hearts. And I'm like, take a look at their rap sheets. 80% of them committed violent crime, up to murder. And so out of our guys, the national recidivism rate is about 70%. That's how many people go back to prison. Ours was less than 5%. Our employment rate was 98%. Basically, everyone got a job. And then after they got a job right out of prison, then we could help them to start their companies. So 60 of them started their companies, and we hooked them up with the angel financing so that they could grow their businesses. And we became known in the news nationally because this is the highest failure rate industry ever, I think. And we were turning that failure on its head. And so I'd love to be able to tell you, thanks. I'd love to be able to tell you that this was such a great idea, and PEP is still going very successfully now statewide in Texas. And so I'd love to be able to tell you that I am now doing Defy Ventures in New York because I just wanted to grow a national model and because I didn't like living in Texas that much, and New York City really is my favorite place in the world. And that is all true. But I had a big personal experience of failure that was very public in between there. And it's the real reason why I actually stopped leading Prison Entrepreneurship Program. So throughout my quest, I was actually married for 9 years. And I was very unexpectedly divorced at the age of 31. And I never in a million years thought that that would happen to me. I was super anti-divorce. And so when I found myself in that place, I did not make the wisest decisions that I possibly could have. I threw myself into some relationships with people who had been released from prison. It wasn't illegal. It wasn't against the prison rules. But it went against my own values, and I knew it was like a terrible leadership decision, and the prison system didn't like it, and the media really did like it. And so I went through a very public resignation process, and I had stood on all types of stages before that, and church stages, and you name it, saying, what would it be like if you were known for the worst thing that you ever did? And now all of a sudden it was me. Like I wanted to walk around wearing dark sunglasses and a hat. I was so ashamed to be me. I could not believe the person I had become. And I'm a very vision-driven, aggressive person who likes to change things. And I had put my everything into PEP. And so now, having resigned from it, I had nothing left. And so I didn't want to live. I literally wanted to kill myself. And this was about 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago maybe. It was other people who came alongside me and scrape me off the mat like I've been scraped off many times off the wrestling team. And I had a choice at that point. You know, I could go and hide for the rest of my life in shame or out of fear of what would happen if I did this again. But people came alongside me in this amazing way to give me a second chance as a leader. And I really did get a second chance, but I was very invested in giving myself my own second chance as well. And there are a couple things that I've learned from failure that I just wanted to share with you. One is that I have failed repeatedly in my life, and I'm thankful for that, and I allow myself to fail all the time. I don't really aim for failure, but I kind of do, I don't know. I like to stretch myself so far because that's the only way that I think that I can get to new territory. And that's who I am, and I embrace that. So I know that I'm going to fail more in my life, and I don't like it, and I don't like the pain that comes from failure, but I guess at this point, I'm just not that scared of failing anymore. And yesterday, I was on a run, and I met somebody random who told me, he said this quote, well-behaved women seldomly make history. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I kind of like that. So I am trying to behave better sometimes, and I've made a lot of changes in my life, and I have like amazing accountability in my life. But at the same time, I still stretch myself all the time, and I'm stretching with Defy because I am creating a national model at this point, and I'm very committed to creating a model that will bring healing and economic opportunities to every urban community in this country. And so that doesn't come easily for me. But one of the major things that I learned that I just want to share with you that out of my second chance is that I had some PR friends who, I don't know, I'm biased, but I think that my PR team, as I went through my resignation, was better than Bill Clinton's or Tiger Woods' team, because my team advised me, don't confess 95% or 50% of what you did. Just get it out there in one broad sweep. And I was like, I can't do that, because what will people think of me? You know, like the fear that I had. But I did. I confessed 100% and kind of more. Like I really covered my bases, and that served me so well because I did have like a big hit to my credibility, but at least nothing else ever came up after that. Like then people are like, okay, she screwed up, but I fully owned what I did. I didn't make excuses for it. I was like, I just made really bad decisions. But what hurts is when I think for most of my life, I've been like a 95% confessor. Like I'll say like, yeah, I did this, but you leave out like that one last little dirty detail, you save it for yourself. And at least for me, that last little dirty detail is the one that prevents me from getting real freedom and healing in my life. So one thing that I would share as a lesson for giving yourself a second chance is get 100% real and take 100% ownership and find friends and people who love you for who you are and not for how you perform. That was one of my biggest problems, because as a 31-year-old like leader of this ministry that was all over every major national publication, I thought if people knew the real me, they wouldn't love me. I wouldn't be okay. So now everyone knows, you already know I'm not an angel. But I'm much more okay in my own skin. The advice that I would give, I think that I came here because some of you are thinking about starting your own organizations. And so 10 years ago, I was just on the verge of starting PEP. I'm now 35. And so if sometimes people say, what advice would you give yourself like 10 years ago? And one is get a lot more therapy very quickly. And the second one is something that a very good friend told me. So he was a private equity friend of mine, and I was sitting there telling him about how I kind of wanted to jump ship from the corporate world, but I was scared because what would people think, and the instability, and I wouldn't be making any money anymore, and this was a crazy idea. And he's like, look, he called me Caddy. He said, look, Caddy, every day that you spend not doing what you know you're supposed to be doing, not following your dream, is a total wasted day of your life. And I hate it. I hate wasting anything. And I can't stand waste. And I had a dream, so I had my answer. So I just pursued it. So my advice is get on it. And you have to have laser focus to get it going. So now we're going to take a hard transition into the fundraising section. You ready? All right, we're going to talk about professional gold digging, as I like to call it here. I kind of wish at times that I raised money for a cuddlier cause than people who have like killed other people, because it's not the easiest thing, and we don't get any government funding at this point. Maybe one day in the long-term future we will. But here's the advice that I would give you, because as people who are starting or currently running your own organizations, in the for-profit world, they say cash is king. Well, nonprofits are still nonprofit businesses. So I'm gonna sound like pretty crass in what I'm gonna talk about right now, because I'm still a business person, but cash is still king. And you can have like the nicest, most bleeding heart about like so sensitive about injustice that it makes you burn and all that, but if you don't raise money to do the work, you're not gonna get any results. Okay, so that's what we're gonna talk about right now. First, what they say in sales, this is basic sales 101, is you have to figure out, people buy to solve their pain. Okay, sometimes people buy features and like exciting stuff, but usually people buy products and services because they have a problem. So you have to figure out how it's gonna fix the problem. Now I can say, well, the pain that you're solving is the US incarceration problem. Well, the fancy executives that I deal with don't really give a crap about people who do time. Like, it's not really a pain for them. Their kids aren't doing time. They have lawyers to get them off the hook if they're selling drugs or whatever. So it's not their pain. So you have to think about what is the pain and why would anyone give you money? So it depends on who you're approaching. So for the donors that I deal with, their pain for the most part is that they're fancy business executives who have achieved great professional success, but they kind of feel like jerks because a lot of times they don't give back. And when they do, it's because they get dragged to like some gala, some chicken gala at the Waldorf Astoria with their buddies, because like their friend is like giving to the Leukemia Society or like some kids thing, and they don't care about it, but they're going to look good. So what is their pain? Their pain is, I really believe that all of us are pretty hardwired to like want meaning in our lives and to give back, but they don't have anything like, for the most part, that they've latched onto that makes them passionate. Like they give back out of obligation, not out of passion. So when I go and meet with executives, I'm like, look, I'm gonna sell you hardcore on what we're about to talk about with Defy, but if you're not really into this, please tell me to go away. I don't want you to give out of obligation. I don't want you to get involved because you feel sorry for anybody. That's not what we stand for. I want you to get passionately involved in this. So I'm looking at how to solve my donor's pain. So whatever it is for you, think about what your donor's potential pain is and how you can sell into that. My next basic thing on sales is, a lot of us, I consider myself a salesperson because I fundraise. A lot of times people leave a meeting and people go, how was that meeting? And like, say I get to meet someone really fancy that I've been wanting to meet for a long time, and they said nice things in the office to me. I could go, oh, the meeting was great. It went so well. Well, you know what? To me, the meeting didn't go so well until I get the check, get the volunteer, get the connections, like get results out of it. Just because people say nice things, we're all trained to say nice things overall. Like, that's just how people are. And they'll be like, that sounds great. Okay, yeah, sure, we'll follow up. Just send me some information. That's a typical, like, tagline at the end of the meeting. That meeting didn't do anything for you. Actually, it probably wasted your time if that's how you leave. So they say that out of sales meetings, they don't succeed. Salespeople get really depressed, or fundraisers, because 46% of sales situations end without the salesperson actually making an ask. So you go in there and like I tell them all about Defy and how we change lives and the great results. And they're like, oh, that sounds great. And I'm like, okay, good, thanks, bye. That doesn't work. So I have to ask for money. I have to like get the nerve to actually make an ask. And a lot of people say, well, how do you know what to ask for? Well, sometimes I'll say, when you get really excited about another charity, tell me what that looks like for you. How big of checks do you write? Do you write checks? And I straight up ask them that. And at the beginning of the meeting, I actually tell them, look, I'm going to tell you all about Defy and what we do. At the end of the meeting, I'm going to try to get everything I possibly can out of you. So this is just your fair warning that, yes, I will ask you for money, connections, and time. You can say no. Okay, but I'm just letting you know right now. So I kind of let them know in advance what I want. I'm a very direct person. Some people are very beat around the bush about things and indirect, and we all know what you're going there for anyway. They know what you're kind of asking for. So I prefer the direct route. It kind of works for me. So what I do is sometimes I'll just come up with an amount. I'll say, look, to provide a student with one scholarship for 1 year, it's $15,000. And I do what I just did right there. I will put out an ask. That wasn't even a real ask. That was just a statement. So I'll put out an ask, and then I create really awkward silence. And I'll just sit there and wait until the donor responds, okay? So I just wait, and sometimes they'll be like, oh, there's no way that I could give $15,000. Like, and they get all, and then I'll be like, okay, well, we have scholarships of all different levels. Donors love to own things, so I have these scholarship cards. This is for Mikey, founder of Mikey Likes It Ice Cream. He's gonna beat out Ben & Jerry's one day, so he's one of our students. Okay, so you can fund Mikey for $15,000. You can also provide a 4-month scholarship, which will fund him for 4 months of the 1-year program at this rate. How does that work for you? And then I'll ask. So it becomes like a negotiation, but I'm always putting it out there and asking. A lot of salespeople are very scared to get no for an answer. I hate taking no for an answer, but I love getting no to no as quickly as I possibly can. Because if this person's not gonna give money, they're just gonna, if I ask them right up front right there, they'll be like, look, my business is having a really hard year this year and I've already given to all these things, and I'll be like, okay, no problem. There's this law of 250. They say that every one of us knows at least 250 people that we could invite to our wedding. I just got recently engaged, so I know that this is true at this point. But so if they say that no, they cannot, that they cannot give us, that they can't give me any money, what I'll do is say, okay, who else do you know that you can introduce me to? Or would you like to be a judge in our event or whatever? So I'll ask them for other things, but I won't keep them on my list as a potential donor. I like to triage as quickly as I possibly can. Another thing that happens, I think, for fundraisers and salespeople is just our fear of rejection gets in the way from us asking people for good things. And I think a lot of that fear comes from the mentality that we have when dealing with donors. If we think that we're there as like a beggar and a nuisance, our attitude will come off to the donors that we are a nuisance. Like it's just going to become apparent. And so I try to brainwash myself all the time, and at this point, like I kind of drink my own Kool-Aid, that what I'm doing is I'm asking them to do something that is so good for their own hearts. When I ask them for money, I'm like, this is the best thing in the world that you can possibly give to. I'm a major donor right back to Defy myself as well. And so if you give money, like I'm doing you a service by allowing you to give to the best organization on the face of the earth. So if you don't believe in what you're selling, you're not going to be able to sell it yourself. But I don't know that this is a Christian conference or not, but I don't really even care. So this is a scripture that really drives me, okay? And like, I believe this stuff. So it's 1 Timothy 6:18 to 19. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they will lay up treasures for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of that which is life indeed. So like, I think when I go to donors, I'm giving them an opportunity to be generous so that they can actually take hold of that which is life indeed. Like this is a life-giving opportunity for them. So I'm not shy to ask them for all good things, for their time, for their money, and their connections, because I think it's good for the donor. So that's why I'm very aggressive about asking them, because I'm doing them a favor by asking them to participate in what we're doing. Okay, let's see here. I only have like 2 more minutes to share a few more fundraising tricks. So, okay, here's my a lot of times when people say, like, oh yeah, that sounds really nice. That sounds great. I'd like to get involved. People say that all the time. So if you get excited about that, that's when you get into the danger zone, in my opinion. So when people say something like that to me, I'm like, oh, so you like it? You like Defy? They're like, yeah. I'm like, you're not just telling me that to try to like be a nice person, right? You're not just trying to like shuffle me out of your office so I like go away, right? And they're like, no, I really like it. So I'm like, okay, so then tell me exactly what you're willing to do to get involved with us. So then I'll be like, okay, well, I could do this and this and this. And if they're like, okay, well, I'll give you a check for $5,000. I'm like, great. So when can I expect the check by? And they'll be like, well, I think I can get it by like the end of 2 weeks from now. And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes there are some donors who like say stuff like that to me, and then they make me chase down their check. I end up feeling like a tax collector instead of a visionary leader. So, I mean, when you tell me that like you're gonna send the check within 2 weeks, like I can count on you to honor your word, right? Of course you can. What I'm doing is I'm creating commitment all along the way to make sure that they're not just telling me nice things that I wanna hear. And remember, if they wanna tell me no, that's totally, absolutely cool. And my last thought that I will leave you on is know what your hourly rate is. And what I mean by that is have activity goals and quotas for yourself. Run this thing like a business. Defy, we raised $780,000 in our first year, 1.15 last year. This year, I have a big goal. It's $2.2 million. 220 work days a year. I have to raise $10,000 a day. $10,000 a day. So one day of mine is worth $10,000. If I don't bring in $10,000, some lives are not being transformed. So I have to be very protective of my time. And a lot of times people are like, oh, why don't you meet with Susie and Joe and blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, why do you want me to meet with them? Because I'd love to, but I have to remember my goals on how I spend my time. So as an example here, me coming to speak to this conference today, I hope that one of you writes me a check for $10,000 because you'll help me fulfill my daily quota, even though it's not Monday through Friday. But I figured that I probably wouldn't raise $10,000 from here because I'm not going to even do an ask today. Today I'm here just to give back, to hopefully inspire you guys to have some second chances and go ask for whatever you need. But I had to realize that I'm not going to fly out here, even though it's like a nice speaking engagement opportunity. I'm not going to come out here just to feel good about myself for being on a stage or something like that. I'm very results oriented. So I came out here because I was able to, because they paid for my trip, which was nice of them. And I got to rope it around all these other donor meetings that are gonna generate more than $10,000 a day. So figure out what you need to raise per day. And I have like this quota sheet, and I actually get babysat by other staff members who act like my boss, even though I'm the CEO, and I have to show them my quota sheet to make sure that like a salesperson, I'm putting out enough calls and emails and nagging, persistent emails to like make sure that they're actually doing it and sending their money in. So I know all the time whether I'm on track to achieving my mission or not. Because remember, like cash is king, and if we don't raise the money that we need, we will not be able to fulfill our visions. So with that, I hope that I've inspired you a little bit on taking second chances in your life and how to go get it and make it happen. Thank you.